Hey guys, how's it going? It's Logan with Hydra 572. Today I'm going to be reviewing the CRKT aluminum ripple, the large version with the 3.125 inch blade. As you can see, it's the Blade Show edition. It's serial number 72 out of 225. Let me start, before I get into the points I want to talk about, I just about gave this knife a scaldingly bad review based on some problems that I'll get into in the review. But watching some reviews of other people that really love the knife, my man Cineric and Nuttin' Fancy, and talking to Chad, I decided to give this thing a more reasonable review based on what I would think of it if it didn't have the presentation problems. So I suppose that's a good thing. It'll be a more usable review, more than just me bitching for a while. So without further ado, we'll get started with the tip. So hopefully you guys can see a nice acute tip, plenty sharp. The belly on this blade, we're not abounding in it the way we are on some other larger knife designs, but we've got enough. I think definitely enough for EDC type tasks. The blade profile, well, as I'm talking about, I love this blade profile, and that is really the one positive point I have to say about this knife. I love pretty much everything about the blade. I think that's a great classic looking design. I think it's great performance for a slim handled EDC knife. I just love it. The swedge grind on top I think looks cool. The top of the blade is a melted back, very comfortable if you're gripping with your thumb up on the blade. I just love that blade. The grind is a smooth hollow grind. It's smoothed out enough that I don't think it matters much that it's not full flat. It's a pretty shallow hollow grind. The steel, 8CR14 MOV, which is a great budget steel. Retention, as to be expected, is not a problem. And the sharpening, no hiccups. Some pretty impressive retention. I'm usually impressed with a $40 knife that can hold an edge for a long time. Maybe at some point I'll show you guys the testing that I do for retention, but yeah, I was impressed for a $40 knife. As I said, I love this blade. The deployment, well, we got flipper only with the IKBS bearing system. I think that's internal knife bearing system. And so your pretty much only option is the flipper. You've got no thumb studs. Yeah, I mean, having one option, it's not bad. It sort of leads to a simplified system, and that's alright. I just don't like the IKBS very much, and I'll talk about that in lock and play here in just 10 seconds. So the lock, we've got a jimped liner lock, and the lock itself, the lock bar is pretty thin, it's pretty skimpy. For EDC usage, it shouldn't be a problem, but yeah, I do like the jimping on the locking liner. That's a feature that all liner locks should have. As for play, yeah, we got play, and that's really a bummer. I found the IKBS to be a disappointment, and the aluminum handle has got some flex in it as well. The IKBS, for those of you that don't know, it's advertised as being an encapsulated bearing system, meaning that you could tighten down the pivot screw as much as you wanted and virtually eliminate play, and the knife would still open smoothly and quickly, and that's pretty much just a flat lie. You definitely can tighten the pivot screw enough that the system stops working and you can't get the knife open. And also, when you have it just barely loose enough for you to actuate the knife, there is still play. So, not really sure what anyone at CRKT is bragging about. Maybe it's better on more expensive knives, but yeah, IKBS is useless as far as I can tell. Interesting, you guys probably can't see, maybe you can. Your stop pins are actually on the inside of the knife, inside the bearing system, I assume. I haven't taken it apart. I assumed I wouldn't be able to get it back together. But yeah, that seems like a complete waste of technology that CRKT is trying to pass off as something awesome. As far as I can tell, it's very not awesome. It's not a problem play-wise, but you know, we were promised a knife with no play through an awesome system that, as far as I can tell, is a lie. The handle, I'm not particularly impressed either. You've got no traction, and you don't really need a whole lot of traction on an EDC knife, especially one with a choil and sort of a half-assed thumb ramp. But there's no reason that we couldn't have had it. Like I said in the Boca review, you can texture aluminum pretty well, so why they didn't, I don't really understand, because the handle's not very comfortable, so it's not like they wanted a very smooth design. But yeah, we have the aluminum here, we've got the ripples going down, very little, no texture on the ripples. It's just an aesthetic. These holes up here, yeah, I'm jumping into ergos. Well, the clip juts into your hand, as hopefully you guys can see there, in a lot of different grip varieties. The clip is protruding into your hand and it's very uncomfortable. There's no reason that it needed to be out this far from the side of this knife. It kind of ruins the slimness of the knife, really. And then it's just not melted. It's not ergonomic on the inside edge. It's not ergonomic up here around the corners. It is just not a very comfortable knife to handle. No, I'm not impressed. The choil is sort of nice, and the most offensive part, I guess, about it is they were so close to having a handle that would have worked really well. All they had to do, even if they had just put a little bit more texture into the ripples, and then if they had melted the edges so the knife was more comfortable to use and fixed the clip problem, this would have been a much cooler knife if the handle hadn't presented the problems that it presented for me. The ergonomics had been better. Moving on to jimping, we've got a section here with some on the back of the blade and some on the back of the handle. Needs to be more aggressive, really, especially when it's the only real traction on the knife other than the choil. There's no reason for it to not be a little more aggressive, as Spyderco has consistently shown us you can have aggressive jimping that is still comfortable. And the thumb ramp, I honestly don't even know why it's there. It does nothing. The hole, yep, we got a small lanyard hole here. Presentation, and here's my biggest dings on the knife. I know I was negative about the handle, but I'm going to be negative here too. Again, I'm sorry for negative reviews, I just have to be honest. Presentation was poor. My pettiest gripe, again, is the visible detent hole. I know it doesn't matter at all, I just don't like it. And so the other thing I have written is we have very severe Loctite issues. And I want you guys to think about what happened to me with this knife and what it would be like if this was the first quality knife that somebody had bought after seeing a couple of YouTube videos and thinking, okay, I've got to go out and get myself a quality knife. After I got this thing out of the box, admittedly from Blade Show, not directly from CRKT, I don't know if that contributed to the problem, but I don't think it absolved CRKT either. After 100 actuations, probably less than 100 actuations, in the first hour of just me playing with it, as I typically will when I get a knife in the mail, the pivot screw was so loose that it fell out in my pocket. Before that, I had been experiencing bad play issues and terrible centering, and this knife still has bad centering, even though I've got it cinched up pretty well now. The knife was rubbing when I was shutting it. It was just in bad shape from 100 openings, and the rest of the screws in the handle weren't doing much better. They were all loose, and the clip was about ready to fall off. 100 actuations, about an hour of in and out of my pocket. I haven't yet Loctited the pivot screw. I wanted to show you guys, hopefully, maybe I tightened it up too much, but the way it came from the factory, it literally was so loose that I could loosen and tighten it with my thumb, and that is just completely unacceptable. And I know a lot of us are technically skilled enough that it's no problem for us to pull out a pivot screw and put some Loctite glue on it, slip it back in, and you've got a perfect system. But there's a lot of people that aren't. And that really matters, especially when we're the quality knife guys that are trying to sell the quality knife hobby to our friends. If they get a knife like this, if we tell them CRKT is a great company and they make good knives, which is true, and they get a knife that falls apart within 100 openings, they're going to wonder why it is that we're telling them to spend any more money than on a $15 Gerber. And this was my biggest gripe, that, like I was saying, I almost gave this knife just a terrible review. Didn't want to talk about the positive things I had to say about the blade, just because it fell apart. And that's really unacceptable. It's a small problem that never should have happened, and it's a very consistent problem with CRKTs that it's had its worst manifestation here. Yeah, so that is my gripe about presentation. I'll go into screws. Well, I just talked about screws. They're fine. They're Torx screws. They need Loctite. They need Loctite really, really bad. I hope you guys don't hate that I'm spending so much time on this, but I think it really does need to be fixed. The clip is unergonomic in one position, so that's a fail as well. There's no reason that we couldn't have had two position. Just tip down, both sides carry. It would not have ruined the knife in any way. The clip was perfectly reversible. And I'm not convinced that we couldn't have had tip up either. But, this is a sort of stylized knife, so I guess I get it maybe, but not really. Usage, well, it's billed as an EDC knife, and that's pretty much all it is. Gentleman's EDC, maybe. I don't think it's going to amaze anyone, but I don't think you're going to intimidate anyone either, so I guess if that's what you want to buy this knife for, sure. The overview, well, it's cheaply available. I guess that's a plus. It's a quality knife that people can go buy at Walmart. That's always a good thing when you can get it distributed out to big stores. It's a light knife, if that's important to you. I know it's important to some people. It's not really to me for reasons I've discussed in other videos. It does have a cool blade profile, and it's got a very uncool handle. For EDC, I'd say the knife is strong enough, but it disheartens me to see a knife that I can flex the handle a lot with my fingers. I'm just not very psyched about this knife. So under pass-fail, I have tentative pass written, but I think I'm going to have to revise that just on the spot. I'm feeling negative about this thing again. I'm going to say if you want it because it's really light, or if you want it because it's small, then sure. If you want it because it's cheap, then maybe, but really, I'm not psyched. I'm going to call it a toss-up. And there are other more positive reviews on this thing. I don't know. I'm just not loving it, not psyched with it. And I gotta pass that on to you guys. I gotta be honest. I feel like they lied about the IKBS, and the pivot screw problems were ridiculous. I've had pivot screws loosen up after 1,000 actuations, sure, after months of being in my pocket and being jostled around and stuff. But to have it fall apart the night that I got it, that's just unacceptable in my mind. So yeah, then we'll move on down to our stats specs corner. A blade length of 3.125 inches, handle length 4.33 inches, overall length 7.5 inches. I know that's not what those numbers add to. I'm taking these from CRKT's website. They don't know how to do addition either. Blade thickness 0.1 inches, weight 2.5 ounces. Like I said, very light, doesn't really matter to me. Blade HQ $34.99, perplexingly eBay for more. $38.87, but that is with shipping, and Blade HQ's not. So there's this knife. Back when I was really negative about it, I told Chad that he could have it, so after this review it will be going to Chad. It will be a part of his collection from now on, and maybe you guys can get a review of it from him that'll be more positive and show you a different perspective. I think it's always cool for you guys to be able to see my and Chad's perspective on the same thing. I want to do a review like that with the Daho Survivor knife too. We've both got one of those. Yeah, so I'll give this to him. And like I said, I love the blade shape, so I may buy one of the more expensive versions of this knife, one of the like $80 ones that has the Acuto Plus steel. I might do it just because I'd love to have another one of these, and that blue-green handle is just awesome. So you guys may be seeing that added to my collection at some point. Yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope the reasons that I'm not psyched about this blade are clear. And I know a lot of people are, just not. Sorry, guys. I feel bad when I do a real negative review, but I gotta be honest. And yeah, that's that. Stay tuned for more of the same.